Lue Elizondo responds to the claims that he was part of the UAP crash retrieval program. A couple days ago, journalist Ross Coulthart had said that he knows and had heard that Lue's involvement was a lot more detailed and there was more to it than what Lue had talked about in the past. And it was pretty big news. We did a video on it over here. And, you know, there's that. The reason why it's coming up more is because Lue Elizondo could potentially be the UFO czar. And, you know, because of that, Ross Coulthart basically said, you got to be upfront with everybody about what you really did if this is going to be the case, because people got to trust you. So he was on Chris Cuomo, Lue Elizondo, and responding to that. So this is a longer clip that we're going to show here, and it's pretty detailed. So I want to discuss it, play the clip from News Nation, and then we get into it. Check it out.
Pentagon UFO whistleblower Lue Elizondo is the real deal, okay? He spent years of his life in service, and he has been the tip of the spear in fighting for transparency. Now, I'm hearing something that I don't understand and I don't like, but I've got to talk about it. Investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, who I also like and respect, and he's been on this show many times with Lue, is now saying something that I don't know if he's just looking for clicks. I mean, he gets plenty anyway covering UAPs, but he said this.
That I think Lue needs to be more forthcoming about his past roles. There are people who bitterly resent and don't think it's a good idea that Lue be appointed to a position of power in UAP transparency because they think that he was part of a previous agenda that was essentially to try to control the narrative, to restrict what the public is entitled to know about the UAP disclosure. I've spoken to people in the legacy program who knew Lue. Lue, I know a lot of people, and they know you, and I know you can't speak about the role that you've held within the legacy program, but you did.
Lue Elizondo, now, your response.
Well, look, I think Ross is an excellent investigative journalist. Personally, I like him. I think he's done tremendous work for disclosure and where we are today in the conversation. I find it interesting that just weeks ago, according to some on social media, I had nothing to do with the UFO program or the Pentagon or ATIP. And now, apparently, I ran everything involving UFOs and the legacy program. So I don't know exactly where Ross is getting his information. I suspect he has sources. Really, that's not really my concern. I've always had a lot of respect for Ross. For me, any chance I get to talk about disclosure and transparency, look, I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life being forthcoming with the American people about the reality of UAP, UFOs. In fact, one only has to look at my resignation memo for the record that I wrote to Secretary Mattis, James Mattis at the time. You know, I've committed myself to transparency to the degree that I could. It is true that I have a security clearance.
So that's the space. That's the space, Lue, right? Because up till that point, I think Ross would agree with everything you just said, until right here. But you were in the legacy program. You've never really talked about it. Is that because you can't? And if you can't, do you think it's fair of Ross to say, well, then you still should?
Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't say I was part of the legacy program. And let me make this clear too, Chris, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. When you work for the government and you have a security clearance, there's always these statements, you know, we cannot confirm or deny. And people always take that as some sort of implicit yes. But the reality is that's not at all what that means. There are classified programs out there. And if someone were to ask me, Lue, were you part of, I don't know, Project X with the M1 Abrams tank? Even if I wasn't, if it's a classified program, I would have to say I can't discuss that. In fact, I can't even acknowledge that. And for those of you in your audience that have security clearances, they will relate to that tremendously. And so I think it's important. A lot of times people infer things, especially in the world of social media and where, you know, people like yourself, you might say something that gets taken out of context or I say something that's getting taken out of context, and all of a sudden it kind of grows legs, if you will, and starts to take on its own life. The truth of the fact is that I've always been very clear. I worked in a program called ATIP. I have committed myself for the last 10 years of my life for truth and transparency to the American public. And at the same time, me being on this program where we're talking about me, Lue Elizondo, instead of disclosure, and I have an opportunity to use this in order to raise awareness about the reality that our government has been involved in this topic for decades, then that's a small price to pay. I'm willing to do that. And by the way, again, for the record, I think Ross is an excellent investigative journalist.
No, I get it. I get it. You're not trashing Ross. I get it.
No,
and I
not
consider
at all.
you a friend. And I appreciate you clarifying it. And look, Ross can put meat on the bones of what it is he wants to talk to you about specifically, and you can do it right here if you both want.
There's so many ways that you can look at that clip and say, you know, the skeptical side of things is, what is he supposed to say? Yeah, Ross is right. You know, he's right. He investigated, and I should come clean. I worked on this program. I'm going to break all the protocols that I have been protecting for this long, and I guess cat's out of the bag. I mean, this is not realistic, you know. I think it's more telling that he is saying, look, I respect Ross. I think he's a great reporter. I don't know where he's getting his sources from, but, you know, I didn't really necessarily say, because what he did say, he said, I never said I was part of the legacy program. He didn't say I wasn't part. That's not true. I wasn't part of it. He danced around it a bit and said, look, there's times I can say I can't confirm or deny, but that could be things that, you know, any other program someone asked me about. But he never says definitively. It's just not true. Wasn't part of it. Wasn't part of it. Factually can say this. I don't know where he's getting his sources from. I don't know what he's saying, but look, I never said I was part of it. Ross never said you said you were part of it. That was the whole point. He said that he knows that you were. There's more information. Interesting, because as Cuomo says, Lue Elizondo and Ross have appeared on many shows together, many times. So the one thing I will say, if they are close and they were friendly, that, you know, Ross is a reporter, and I guess his job comes first over this particular friendship, but it shows to me that they weren't that close, because Ross, you know, if I was Lue and I was friends with Ross, I would expect a conversation of like, hey, listen, I'm hearing these things. If you want to come on and respond to it, you can, but I'm bringing it up today, and I'm going to bring it up. So just be careful on the response. And maybe he did do that. I don't know. But Ross has been talking about this after Lue's been defending himself, or responding rather. And this is what Ross had to say.
I did want to clarify that I don't think that anything that Lue has said publicly to date has in any way challenged the veracity of what we are saying. Lue has been very careful to neither confirm nor deny his past role in the legacy program, and I respect him for doing that. He's a national security operative who's basically, well, he was a national security operative who's operating under constraints, and he can't reveal past roles that he's secured by under NDAs and national security oaths. But I do think that at some stage there needs to be an acquittal in the public arena where, if especially amnesties are offered, if especially exemptions from NDAs are offered, it's time for people like Lue to come forward and say exactly what they know.
Sticking to his guns, as he should. And he's like, look, he hasn't said that you know, he wasn't. He's being very careful to say it because he needs to. Essentially what we just said a little while ago. If he's part of these programs, he can't just say it. But as Ross hinted at down the line there was, look, this is the whole point of people getting protection. And when that comes, that you're not going to have an excuse anymore to say, well, I can't say anything anymore. I don't have protection. And it goes back to me a moment that I've mentioned 1,000 times over here, and that's the moment of, I think it was the 2024 hearing when they asked Katsky if he was going to testify. He's like, no, I got no protection. There's no reason for me to do that, because if I do that, I'm screwed with it comes to overall protection for my family, when it comes to money, when it comes to my overall, livelihood. It doesn't make sense. And that always made sense to me of why they can't get certain people. You're not going to get many grushes out there that are going to say, you know what, let's go. Matthew Brown is an example. Matthew Brown was someone who was just kind of, you don't really hear about him as much anymore. And he just kind of broke a lot of protocol. And unfortunately, you know, I don't know where no one's really been protecting him or having him speak more, or really diving deep. But I guess that's what Ross is saying here. That if you do get these people this type of protection, that the Matthew Browns of the world, the Lue Elizondos, they come out and they say, okay, if you guys are going to protect me now, and I can tell you the truth of what I was doing, then here it is. Because if that protection is there and they're not speaking up, you have to ask that question of, well, why not? What's your real goal? You keep saying that you want to be the one that says everything and gets the truth out there, and you want to tell the people what's really going on. Well, we're giving you that shot. But to be fair to Lue and those other people, that's not there right now. So even if he is part of it, I do understand you can't say anything right now. You can't. So dancing around it, sure. But I think that is problematic in the difference of, let's say, Lakatsky or a Matt Brown. They're not up for these big positions in the government. Lue is. If someone who has been involved with these things before first of all, should absolutely have protection. If he's going to be the czar, you should give him all the protection and then say, well, what do you know? Why are you the guy for the job? Well, I'll tell you, I worked on this program. Now that I can talk about it, here it is. So I think this is a pretty big story overall, but it leads to other big pieces. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. Put your thoughts in there. Let me know. I appreciate it. Hit that like button, subscribe button, all that and more. We'll see you here tomorrow.